Everybody, welcome back to the Insiders Lounge. Today we have another special episode and another special guest. Dennis, thank you for joining me and feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Dennis Chyn here, Global President of Soccer for Young Money APAA Sports, and I'm excited to be on the podcast with you.
I appreciate it. Let's get started with the earliest soccer memory. I would love to hear what you can first think back to.
So I'm going to show my age a bit. I think the earliest for me was a 1994 World Cup in the US, but I was living in Jamaica at the time, and I was watching the penalty shootout of Italy versus Brazil when Roberto Baggio missed a penalty, and I remember just watching and being like the excitement of it, because I mean in Jamaica we're pretty passionate about football. And I think my mom was like an Italian fan and my dad is a Brazilian Brazil fan for the game. So yeah, that's the earliest memory for me that kind of sparked everything.
And I want to get into that sort of Jamaican upbringing. I believe it's Jamaican and Chinese background. So I'd love to get into, like, first of all, it's a crazy mix. And I'd love to hear kind of your upbringing in the Caribbean. Like, it's a totally different culture than what we're used to in North America as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm my dad is Chinese, from two Chinese parents, born in Jamaica though. So he has a guy with a thick Jamaican accent. He's a funny guy. And my mom was born in Jamaica as well. And then she moved to the UK. And then, the whole aspect of it, we know Jamaica for athleticism and speed especially. And it's funny because when I was going through, I think all our I would say, like, disputes as a children, we race. It's like, all right, let's race. Yeah. And whoever wins the race is the guy, right? So it was very, very, my family was very, very big on education. It's pretty typical Chinese, in that aspect. But I mean, growing up in Jamaica, athletics, cricket, soccer, football, and track and field is the biggest things that everyone is really kind of interested in, and the sporting end. But yeah, I was raised to be very, very focused on school, extra lessons after, and then when my parents, my dad actually moved to the US really early, and then decided to bring me and my brother up, and that's how we kind of moved to the US from there.
Yeah, I want to get into a little bit of like your youth career, kind of growing up as a youth soccer player. You mentioned a lot that of the struggle with the pathways in the Caribbean as a whole, getting to the professional level. I'd love to hear kind of how you thought about it at the time, and now looking back, how you kind of saw your career playing out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's dream is to play professionally when you're young, especially a young boy, for your favorite sport. For me, I remember the 1998 World Cup was the World Cup we qualified for Jamaica. We got a national holiday because of the qualification, and everyone was really excited. And I remember just dribbling through the house, with like a paper ball, and got in trouble, but but like saying my name as the name of one of the players in Jamaica, and like kind of just fantasizing about it. But we only had like school teams, and it's honestly pretty intense. And so I remember even playing with like the under 9, under 8 level in the schoolboy football, which is like primary school, prep school. It was only 3 substitutions, and so it's not like unlimited substitutions and everything, and only the star players played. And at the time, I was not a star player. Trust me, I didn't even touch. I remember not touching the field all season. In my first game, first times playing. And I remember my dad came to the game, and then he put me in at the end of the season one time, and I was lost. I did not deserve to play at that point. And then I just really started playing on the streets. Everyone played on the streets, after school and weekends, and just with the older boys, just learning. And then when I moved to the US, that's really when I really got into like organized club soccer, but it was like recreational, stuff at the time. And I really became obsessed with getting better. I remember checking. We had, my parents had to. We usually had like extra lessons after school. Like I said, education was really important, so we had to check out books from the library and read. And I always made sure I checked out at least one or two soccer books and read about tactics and technique and stuff. Because I mean, there's no YouTube or anything in those days, right? Showing my age again. Uh, but and then I used to go out after I finished my homework. I went out in the driveway and just kicked around, try to play with neighborhood kids in the U.S., which is really difficult because everyone played baseball or American football or something, right? But I mean, I tried to get it fun where I would say, all right, everyone against me. And I just try to dribble around all these baseball players. I think I started developing, not knowingly developing some skills there.
Mm.
I was really, really small comparatively. I was not really that athletic yet. So probably why I didn't play in Jamaica. But I was a little bit quick, but nothing crazy. And yeah, I played it recreational, and then I started getting better. And then I scored like 4 goals in a game. And then I guess the local travel team guy saw me and then asked my parents. And then that's how I started kind of playing travel soccer. And I was 12 at the time, 13. So I really didn't really get into it really until like 11,
Yeah, like a later development in a
later
sense.
development age, but I was obsessed. I mean, it wasn't my parents pushing. My parents did not want me to care about me playing soccer.
Really? Wow.
It was me. I mean, if anything, if I get in trouble, that's what they would look to take away. I was making sure I didn't get in trouble because, I wanted to play. So yeah, getting through that, we ended up moving to the Orlando area, for high school times. So I was still playing at a decent club level, but nothing like first team, MLS Next, DA, and all these stuff they have now. And then I was playing at Oviedo High School, was at a high school in Orlando. And I just, from sophomore year to junior year, I just grew. I was like 5'2" as a freshman. So I was really, really.
Wow.
So I had to be technically sharp and all that kind of stuff because everyone else was so much bigger than me. And then all of a sudden I grew to like 5'8", 5'9" by my junior year, and I got faster than everyone else. So it just like took off athletically. And then I just started scoring goals. I was a 10 and I started scoring goals. And then by senior year, I was 6'1", and yeah, faster than everyone else, but I still had the mindset of a technical player. And then, yeah, that's really how I really got seen in all state teams and all the colleges started coming. So that's when it started for me.
I want to talk about kind of that balance between, you mentioned the importance of like education, but also your athletic side of playing soccer, and the relationship between you and your parents. Like you mentioned that they didn't really necessarily want you playing soccer. It was much more focused on the educational side. So can you talk about the balance growing up and then getting into university, playing there, kind of what the balance was like there? I think being a student athlete is kind of the perfect example of balancing the two. So I'm curious how you approached it, and then how like the relationship with your parents was in approaching that as well.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, like I said, it's really strict school. I never met a pro player. Like at these the times when I was younger, like I said, we were talking about opportunities and pathways. Just only saw it on TV. So I didn't think technically I would be a pro, and neither did my parents. So they didn't want me wasting time playing it. And at that time, we didn't think about it like logically about the college pathway that I could honestly get a scholarship to do this. So therefore, it wasn't really looked upon as important. So like I said, it was not till my junior year when things started clicking and then school started reaching out, that my family was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess you can do something with this, right? And then, but the balance was like, I didn't honestly I immigrated from Jamaica, and I think because of that, I was really shy. I think culturally speaking language, it's English, but we had accents and stuff like that. So I really didn't go out with other friends and stuff like that. I literally studied and played football. Like that's all I did. So the balance of social was not even there until college. Like I really just studied and played football. I had amazing grades, did a great in my standardized tests. So it was like I went on my recruiting trip to Columbia in Manhattan and Cornell, only Ivy League recruitment trip.
Did that help you in kind of that recruitment stage, like having such high academics? Like, did that help you on getting better scholarships in terms of not necessarily playing scholarships, but
Yeah,
academic
yeah, yeah. I
scholarships?
mean, I ended up when I did with going to Rollins, I had a half academic, half athletics.
Oh, okay, yeah, there you go.
So it helped out a lot, right? But so that should show you that my focus wasn't only football. I wished it was, but it was. I just didn't know where it was going to take me at that time. I couldn't tell you that I chose so and so school because of the program. I tried, but my parents were like, no, like academic school first, everything else second, right? So I didn't really get the chance to explore some of those options that well. It was a long story why I even end up at a Division 2 because I only had Division 1, Columbia, Cornell, all Division 1, and so it was a good balance. But Ivy League schools don't give athletic scholarships; it's all like need-based financial aid, and it's really competitive academically to get a scholarship there. So I ended up going to Rollins to try end up to see how it goes and then maybe transfer after a while, and I just really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it too much.
I was gonna say I've actually been to Rollins, and it is one of the most stunning campuses ever. Like an unbelievable place to develop as a soccer player for sure.
Exactly. So, I mean, didn't know what I was getting to. I didn't even visit the school, honestly. my
Oh wow.
and I lived down literally 40 minutes from it. So
Mhm.
my dad had an MBA from Crummer, which is a school there, which is a great business school. And he's like, all right, well, at least it's good. And I started off as a mathematics major at Rollins College. Like,
Wow.
so I was like on that path to maybe get it to go engineering or physics degree or something like that. And I played as a freshman, right? Because I was coming from going to a top Division 1 program, because I was talking to ACC schools and all that aspect, and started as a freshman, which was gave me confidence, right? I mean, if I would have went and sat a bench, I probably wouldn't have cared as much or something like that. So, I mean, I didn't balance it that well because that's when my social life came in and I was like, what? Social life, college, partying, and everything. And it wasn't really balanced well, but it was what I needed, I think, at the time because
Mm.
took me out of my shell, got me to play. In Rollins, we don't have an American football. We don't have American football program. So our soccer team, and, was basically the top team campus. So I got, it was good, what I needed, I think, at the time, not knowingly, for my development. And yeah, I think that balance was I wouldn't even call it balance then, but that's really what like gave me what I needed, like personality wise, to take the next step that I didn't know I was going to take.
Yeah, well said. Getting into that stage, sort of just pre going professional, was there anything that you would have changed now up until this point? So your youth career, your college career, was there any, like, if you're looking back now, would you have said, hey, maybe I should have gone this path, or this might have been beneficial, or would you say that the path you took was quite good looking back now with the experience you've had?
I'm one of those guys who just I don't care to change anything because then I wouldn't be
Mm.
right. But if I would really have wanted to be this top player, I mean, I played for context. I was on the same like all-star team in high school as Dax McCarthy and Graham Susi, who end up having amazing MLS careers. I think Jack's just retired right now.
Yeah.
Graham's still like so we were considered the top three, and there was like Lal Adams who ended up getting. So we were like I guess 4 or 5 of us were like really considered highly rated then, and Graham ended up going to Maryland, University of Maryland, won a national championship with Maryland. Dax ended up going for a year at UNC Chapel Hill. And then I went to Rollins. So it's totally different pathways. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't replace it for anything because I needed this balance. I would have not been who I was, and I don't think I was ready for to go in those environments yet.
Mm.
As much as I would assume I would. I mean, talent wise, maybe, but maturity as far as knowing how to balance certain things so far away, I don't know. I don't know.
And then getting into your pro career, you obviously had experience in North America, in Europe, and in the Middle East. Can you talk me through kind of some of the most pivotal moments, some of the biggest experiences for you that you gained throughout that time? And then we'll get into more of your day to day now and what that
Yeah,
looks
I
like.
mean, for me, I have a crazy story of how I even became a pro. So I mean, I went to a Division two too. I wasn't drafted or anything like that. And I remember Orlando City was coming in town. They're like, "Oh, this new pro team is coming in town," and I was finishing my last year at Rollins, and my dad drugged me to the press conference of Orlando City. Like, cause he's like, "Whoa, you play football, right? This is a team. Maybe you can get an internship." Like, he's not thinking playing. Like, and I remember meeting Adrian Heath, the coach, and like, there you go. He telling me to meet him. I met him, shook hands with the owner and everything else, and I just moved on my way. Started training with the Sports Performance Center, which is how I met my wife. Crazy enough. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, because she was training to become a pro in Germany. She was an
Mm.
All-American at UCF and U.S. national team. So a way bigger profile than I was at that time. And I ended up going to this. I was not even invited, by the way. And there was like a 6v6, like 12 players that some local coaches put together to go play at that field, and they said the Orlando City coaches were gonna go. Come on, man! It's like like who's gonna come? These new Orlando City teams, right? So someone got injured, and then they called me to make that number up. So I showed up the next day, and we're there playing possession in 6v6, and here comes Adrian Heath and his coaching staff to the thing. And afterwards, one of the coaches came up to me and said, "Hey, listen, like they like you." And I was like, what? Like, I'm just playing football. And then I got a call like a week later, invited me to preseason to Orlando. And then I came into the preseason, and every week someone was getting cut. Pow, pow, pow. And I just kept on surviving. I went into it with just gratitude. I didn't think I was, maybe supposed to be there. They were all pro guys. I was one of the youngest. There's no real rookies. And I just lasted every week, and they seemed to like me. And then literally the week right before the first game, so like a 2-3 months preseason, that's when they offered me a contract. Made
Wow.
it through there. I mean, this is the beginning of Orlando City. I mean, there was no kit man. We didn't even have crests on our training kit. Like, this is like the beginning. Like, I went home and watched the pennies for the team, balls for the team, because I was a rookie. I was the youngest guy on the team.
Mm.
Yeah, I ended up getting a contract, and then I didn't play for a couple of months. And then there was an Open Cup, which, we're going to play an amateur team or something. And they're like, you can get a start there. And then I scored an assist. They're like, oh, I guess this guy can do something. Because I was just sitting back watching the team every game and learning from these guys and training with them. So I got my chance at the end of the season, started getting 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Came on the field and I just ran. I sprinted, I pressed, and then I started scoring. And then I scored in every single playoff game to bring the team to the finals in the first year of Orlando. And then in the final game in the USL Championship final in 2011, we got a red card, and we were in the 50-something minute, and our goalkeeper got a red card for coming out of the box. So he wanted more pace and someone who could cover ground like two people. So as a rookie player, he threw me into the championship game, and we went to extra time, and we were down 2-1 in extra time. And in the final 2 minutes, I got a ball in behind. I get taken down in the box for a penalty, and we tied it to go to penalties, and we won. And on my first ever year, and then obviously that was amazing. They offered me a new 3-year deal after the season. I had no agent or anything. Like, literally,
Mm.
next year I won a Golden Boot. So like, things just ramped up from there. After
Yeah.
that, obviously that was a big deal, but we didn't end up. We won the regular season again, but lost in the playoff, and then so I ended up winning 5 titles and whatever with Orlando, and it was amazing. Like, my favorite place to play. To this day, I still still go around and do appearances for them. So it was really, really great. And then I took a chance to go to Denmark instead of staying and playing in MLS, because I wanted to play in Europe.
Mm.
And I froze to death, and it was like Bambi on ice. And came back. I wasn't
You don't see too many Jamaicans in Denmark, so I can understand you
time, right?
there.
And then I just wasn't prepared. I just the flash of Europe and everything, it was all there, but I went there and, I was listening to everyone because no one was speaking the language in the training. And I had people translate. And it was like a lot of things like that I wasn't prepared for. Came back to the US, ended up going to Canada for a bit. And then I got bought by a team in Israel. Ended up playing, and I was prepared for that one. I was like, all right, I'm going to go across. I was prepared for that one. I did really well. And then ended up being coming back again. At that time, my wife and I were looking to start a family, so I needed to settle down a bit. I thought about being a professional coach, so I got an opportunity as a player assistant in the USL with Richmond Kickers. Explored that, did not like it. I didn't think professional coaching was for me, which is good to take that off the list. And then I was really close to my agent at the time, who's now the sporting director of New Mexico United. Shout out to Idemar Kenan. And he's like, hey, listen, you have an eye for this. You should be an agent. And I was like, oh, no chance. Like, these guys are slimy. But he showed me there's good ones, and you know what I mean. And that's kind of how I got in my head and have some opportunities to maybe join him or something else. And for some weird reason, I can't tell you why, I decided to do it on my own. And that's how Chyn Sports was started, really.
Yeah. So before we get into Chyn Sports, I wanted to know, I speak with a lot of professional footballers nearing the end of their career. And sometimes like some just have a plan. They know exactly what they want to do post career and like kind of re-identify themselves in a new way. Others have no idea because you've been constantly called this, oh, I'm a professional footballer. But then you don't really know, okay, what's my new identity now that I'm retired? So for you, what bucket would you say you were in? Did you kind of have an idea of like, okay, coaching, maybe like something like that? Or were you just like, you know what, I'm just going to try a few things out and see what sticks?
To be fair, I had no idea, but I'm used to that. I think I have this innate confidence in myself because I was never supposed to be a college player, right? I was never supposed to be a pro player. And I somehow figured it out. So when I was coming to the end, all I did was just take steps to put myself in position to ask questions to people that already did it. I asked around some of my ex-teammates that, became sporting directors or coaches or analysts and broadcasting. And they just asked around. And then at one point I was like, why do I even go into soccer? I could go off and go in fashion, or like, I literally thought that way, art or something like that. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself. And then it just turned out that, hey, I throughout my entire coaching, my playing career, I was really, really, really the locker room guy in a lot of locker rooms. I looked out for the younger guys. I had off-season training sessions in Central Florida that all the pros went to for free, and I ran the sessions. So I had a thing for development and like coaching in a small group and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I thought maybe coaching was for me. What I didn't like is the instability of coaching. Like, you can be one team one there and not the other way. And that kind of played a part of me not wanting to get in it. And also I wanted to use it on my gift for looking at players and helping in the development and getting them where they need to be on a more global approach, instead of like doing it for off season and then focus on these guys for the season. And that's all I focused on. With, the agency stuff, I could literally all year round in different leagues and different players focusing on their development. And I think that's really how I saw it at that time. So I never had a plan. My wife was going to kill me. She's very goals and plans oriented, but I mean, I just how it was at that time for me. And I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. I think for my younger players now, I kind of tell them to think about it before, but you never know because everything changes. You meet someone who will change your life at any point, right?
So for yourself, how come you went down kind of going on your own and founding your own agency? That's not easy to do. It's much easier to go and join a big agency and kind of go and build on that. And do you have like almost like that entrepreneurial mindset when it comes to that? I'm curious how you approach that.
I'm not going to sit here like some of the moguls, right, and talk about, hey, I was doing paper routes at 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like that. I have, like I said, I have a mindset. I guess they call it growth mindset now, right? Where I feel like I want to learn things, and I go really in depth in learning them. So once I was starting to do these research on the agency world, and I lived it. I lived what those players reached, and I realized, like, all right, I wasn't going to be able to compete if I went on my own. I wouldn't be able to compete with these bigger agencies at first, but I could find niches, right, where I could be very successful with my skill set. So I really didn't look. Maybe if I looked at it more logically, I would have been cautious. But I just dove in, and I started like creating a brand and logo and color schemes, and you kind of start like getting like, all right, so what are people supposed to think about when they think of it? And then you start getting into the artistic and creative processes of it.
And you almost learn about yourself, right? You're like kind of thinking like, oh, what do I appreciate? Like, what do I value?
Exactly. And then the vision kind of builds from there. And then the reason why not join another agency, because I knew I would just be, obviously you're there and you're learning, but I wouldn't learn as quick, right? I wouldn't be hands-on as much because no one's going to trust me coming straight out of playing to deal with the bigger clients or deal with those guys in the transfers and negotiating. So that's why I was like, hey, listen, I could learn more in this next year on my own, struggling and everyone not even picking up my calls. You know what I mean? And than I would if I had the keys to the city and someone go, oh yeah, you have this name now, go out there and do it. And it sounds stupid, but I was just willing to invest in myself like that. I just feel like given time, I know what it took to be a pro. I knew what it is going to take. I knew some of the coaches and the GMs from when I was playing. So I had a personal relationship with some. If I didn't and I didn't play, there's no chance I would survive that first year or something, because who would take me serious? But some people, thank goodness, one of them being my old agent that became a sporting director, literally while there, he took it serious and trusted me, and it worked out that way.
I'm going to go over some of the, so you founded Chyn Sports, and over about three plus years, you did 60 deals. You represented players from over 20 nations in more than 12 markets. That's obviously a lot to unpack. If we can just get like some of the top highlights during that time, some of the biggest learning curves, and then we'll get into your time now with Young Money.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing in the agency world is it's so unpredictable. You learn to live with the chaos of it, because one day you have something planned out and you're like, hey, listen, you're going to score so many goals and we have a plan that you're going to move to the Premier League and blah, 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 blah. And then someone gets hurt or then a team in La Liga reaches out. You just never know, right? And I'm not at that stage of pulling players all the time to the Premier League. But for us, I would say that I decided to focus a lot in the Caribbean at first, because I was from the Caribbean. I knew there's a niche there that a lot of people at a lot of the bigger agencies here couldn't get to. And they were the same kind of talent. And I could help clubs get really talented players to get here. I looked through all the record books, especially in the USL, and the highest goal scorer in the history of the league is Jamaican. The most minutes played was Jamaican. The most assists ever in the league is Jamaican, right? The time MLS goalkeeper of the year, Andre Blake, was Jamaican. Like, there's so many things, but there was barely other Jamaican players, right? So I was like, all right, maybe I should look in Jamaica. Maybe I should look in. And I really started focusing on developing markets. And through that, I had one story. I found a kid through Y Scout that played in the U17 World Cup in Brazil at the time, from Haiti. And he was a center mid, and nobody really knew him here. But because he had film of him playing the U17 World Cup, he's just in lady. So I called one of my old teammates that was a national team player for Haiti, and I didn't speak French or Creole, right? And he found this kid for me, and somehow I convinced him and the family to trust me, bought him a flight to live with my family during COVID, gave him shots, everything, and literally taught this boy English. He didn't speak. We were Google Translating in our own house. And the kid ended up getting bought by New Mexico United in the USL, and then he gets sold to FC Dallas, and he's in MLS now. And I mean, he was roaring because he was a teenager, right? And he ended up getting his first senior cap because of that. He's played Gold Cups now, and that was rewarding. And there's countless other aspects that we were able to find like a kid like David Pareba. And first of all, I got a shout out to my partner. So right as I was starting everything and getting things going, I had an ex-teammate that I play with called Giuseppe Gentile, and he lives in Zurich in Switzerland, and he speaks 5 languages, so he gives it very handily. He was just like the most genuine person, right? And that was really important for me. I think it was really good that anyone that I work with, I can sleep well and knowing that this guy is a guy. That was more important to me than being maybe the craziest business acumen or, anything like that. And we grinded together and built Chyn Sports together, and he helped with a lot of aspects of recruiting some of these players, and he's really good with that aspect, and then we did it together, and yeah, we found a kid, David Pareba, that was a dual national, playing in Poland, not playing that much, and we ended up bringing him to MLS Next Pro, and he became Charlotte 2's first ever signing, which is Crown Legacy. And this year ended up going to Chicago, which was where he's actually born, and winning the MLS Next Pro MVP, right? And this is not going to air between them, but he's now signs a multi-year deal in MLS, right? So these are the things that are so rewarding, because a lot of our players that we ended up signing because we couldn't get those big dogs early, we ended up signing very young and believing in them before anyone else did. And now they're blown up to the part that they're in top leagues and, and stuff like that. So I think those are the biggest moments. I think there's so many. I mean, at this point, we're 60 deals in beginning of May, and I think we're close to 100 right now already.
Wow.
So, and it's just the biggest thing for us. I've never taken a fee from a player throughout this whole time. So I've left a lot of money on the table probably, but it was really important that we did it like that, because that's what I would have wanted as a player. I know it's not the best business I could model, but because of that, we have intense loyalty from all of our guys, because they know that we work hard for them, and we're always looking out for them. We speak to all our players every week, no matter if you're in USL 1 or you're in the top leagues, and that kind of equity across the board. I mean, maybe it's not as efficient to have the most revenue, but it works for us, right? So I think these are the biggest highlights for us, more than the amount of deals or the amount of things. It's the amount of opportunities we create, and that we can hold our head high and say, like, a club could say, yes, it's good to work with those guys, and the players never leaves us, right? So that's the biggest point for us.
You mentioned the Haitian player coming and living with you and your family. I want to know the role that your family plays in all of this, in your life in general, but also on the business side. Like, I think it's extremely important, like you mentioned there, to have really good people around you, people that you can trust. So I'd love to hear, between your kids and your wife, the importance of family that you have around you in the day-to-day business that you do.
So my family didn't start out to be very football people, like I said it. My dad was in like tech and and all that kind of stuff. But when I was coming to Orlando, he ended up investing in Orlando City during time in the USL, and became a small part of the ownership group. And then obviously they sold the team to the Wilfs family that currently owns Orlando. So I saw a lot of the aspect of the behind the scenes of ownership of a team through him. I learned a lot through that. My younger brother ended up playing in college as well, and then he ended up being in PR and communications, and he started at Orlando City as well, and then went to Portland Timbers, and he's been in Chicago Fire for some years as a senior communications, and he does an amazing job in PR. So I saw it from a PR side. I realized how important those aspects of marketing and everything is. And then obviously my wife ended up playing professional soccer as well. She ended up playing in Germany and came back. So I was really, really focused a lot on the US, the women's game in general too. So I got a feel of that. And she actually came into a role in community relations in Orlando and helped build the foundation that we see now today with Kay Rollins, the owner's wife at that time. And so I started from a community relations and a foundation and the nonprofit aspect of the line too. And I got that that vision. And then I had brothers in the youth academy, and one of my youngest brother was U.S. youth national team pool, and he ended up going to Syracuse and won a national championship in 2022 as a freshman. So I ended up seeing it from a youth aspect, and so my family is very important because it really rounded me in football and business, in sports especially. I'm really close to everyone. I have 3 other brothers. We're all in some different, like I said, PR agency world. My other brother's in finance at Charles Schwab, and my youngest brother is right. And then obviously I have a very supported. I have 2 kids, 2 little ones, boy and girl. We'll see if they'll play.
I feel like at this point they're destined to, at least a little bit.
Soccer playing parents, but you never know. But yeah, I just have a very, very supportive family. I'm very lucky for that. My mom, everyone is very supportive, and it really rounds me on different aspects, and I can say, hey, listen, how does this look if I throw a press release to my brother, and he can, you know what I mean? How does this look? If you're a women's player, does it sound good? Does it sound bad? Would you come to Young Money, or you know what I mean? So I have really great support. I'm really lucky. I don't think we would have gotten this quickly, this much success without it.
So we've covered Chyn Sports as a whole. I want to get through that transition period. You spoke a little bit about it in one of your articles on kind of the first introduction to the Young Money team, what that involved, and why you ended up choosing that route as sort of the next step as the agency as well as for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, everything happens, right? Like that's why I don't look back, because you get put in these positions that you don't expect. Like it was nothing in my head last year, this time, like that, a little bit before that, I was saying, hey, listen, I'm going to be with Lil Wayne, and heck, zero chance. I was so focused on what we were doing. But no, I mean, like I said, everything happened through family. My wife actually, she still develops younger female players, and a lot of her players go on to play in college in the NWSL, and a girl she trained, her dad, Ezra, actually grew up with McMahon and Lil Wayne and those guys, and he like came to one day and he's like, hey, you know what? I thought about you're running an agency. I always see players staying in your house and stuff like that, and you bring them to train with our daughters or kids, because I'm a big fan of like giving back in that way. And those pro guys get to see that. It's like I know these guys, and they have NFL and NBA in their agency, and I know they're always talking about what would soccer look like. You should jump on a call with them. And I was like, all right, cool. Didn't really believe it, but here I was, same time this time last year, in front of screens just like this, with a Zoom call with McMahon, who's who at the time was the president of Young Money Entertainment in the music side, and he was just kind of asking me a bunch of questions about soccer, and what I do, and how just the industry in general. And I just was telling him, I was just being me, talking to him about it. I wasn't really thinking about anything else. And that ended, and then he ended up asking to jump on another call. This time was with Adi Van Gaart, who's he's from the Anheuser-Busch family. So that family is really, really well known, I guess, with Budweiser and everything. I didn't know him at the time, so it's not like I was like, oh, I was looking forward to this call. I mean, and some of the guys from the NFL and NBA side, and we just jumped on a Zoom call and we just talked. And it just felt right to me. I just felt like good guys. They asked great questions. They seemed really intrigued about soccer as a sport. And I was really intrigued about what they did too. I didn't know any football agents and stuff. And I was like, oh, in my head, I was like thinking about, how can I learn from these guys to bring to soccer what no one's doing in soccer yet? You know what I mean? Because the US is known to have great marketing and great media stuff. So, that was my thoughts on it. And then they reached out again and asked, in a more official way, like, all right, like, can you send me your finances and all that kind of stuff? And that's when I was like, all right, something's moving. Should I put a pitch together or something? And then fast forward to earlier this year, like February, we had another meeting in person which we spoke about everything. And, Adi was really open and said, hey, listen, like, we really, really believe in what you're doing. We believe in the sport and the growth of the sport. What if we love to have you on board with us and bring your team, and we want to support you in creating a world class agency in soccer. And I mean, it was too much to to turn down with the aspect of the backing of Anheuser-Busch family, someone there, and then obviously the entertainment side with Lil Wayne and what he's done. But honestly, it's the people, right? It sounds crazy, but some people are like really, really flashy into that in the entertainment side. But like I look for like who's genuine and who's trying to make differences in their own little ways, and it might not be everyone's liking how they market themselves, but these guys were really genuine, and they wanted me to do what I needed to do, and I called the shots on soccer because I knew better on this aspect of the world, and it was no brainer for us, right, to get onto that under that brand and build something special, without just going up and spending a bunch of money to buy all these other agencies with big players. And it was supposed to be an organic growth, and then that was really what drew me to the project.
What for them, like, why did they want to get into the soccer industry, and why now? I'm curious if from your point of view.
Good question. I think that it's very obvious that the World Cup in 2026 is coming. So everyone is talking about it. All right. But no, I think for them, on Adi's aspect in their family, his dad played college soccer. So they had like his dad always thought about getting involved in the sport in some aspect. And it was just to increase a global footprint of the brand and help grow, because you never know, you can have collaboration with the football side and everything else. So that was big. They just realized that they didn't know enough about it, and they think that it was a missed opportunity, and to have someone they could trust that will help them, help us all like step foot in it little by little. And honestly, those guys know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Obviously, from a business aspect, I mean, anyone can feel how they are about everything else. But I mean, it's been good to learn how other industries kind of do things and what we could take from soccer and what can't. But the key thing is that, I remember Mac May was telling me that Mbappe was at his restaurant in Miami there, and talking to me about like his experiences in it and how hard it is to get into soccer, because it's pretty closed bubble. Unless you know people in soccer, it's really closed. So I think that intrigued them, and like, all right, well, it's closed. Like,
it's almost like a challenge,
yeah. A challenge, right? So I think that's really, really why that it kind of geared him up. And then Wayne has met Ronaldo, Cristiano before, and they kind of teased something in the past, but he never went into it. So I think he was always destined that he would want to get into soccer at some point.
And then for you, like, obviously you're joining an agency now with a lot of resources, multi-industry. You've got the entertainment side, you got the sporting side. What have been the biggest changes on your end now in terms of like your role, your day to day, and how this has affected the agency as a whole in terms of the players and everything that you have going on?
Obviously, I think it's been a great advantage. I mean, no one used Chyn Sports as much, right, compared to Young Money. But I don't think, I think in soccer and specifically in the European market, I mean, the big flashy stuff from America is not really that great for them. A lot of Americans are buying clubs over there, and it comes with like a little bit of like skepticism. Does these guys actually know our sport, or are they trying to like benefit off it? But because of my background as a player and what we've already done before, it kind of legitimizes a bit of what we do to have now Young Money to believe in us. So I think it's just the belief aspect more than just the flash and the entertainment. Oh, I get to meet Lil Wayne or stuff. That kind of helps with with everything. Other on a day-to-day side, it doesn't change all too much. Is that we have the push to be able to get the biggest players in the world now. You know what I mean? But before we didn't have the same kind of, we couldn't get into the same meetings the same, right? But now I've been fortunate enough to have some talks with some of the guys that are in Madrid right now and stuff like that. But everything still what has not changed. It has to make sense. from a personal aspect. If we don't feel good working with them, and if it's just like, oh, just a business relationship where we're like, all right, we're just doing a deal to just get some percentage of commission, and this guy's like, all right, peace out. Like, it's not really as enjoyable for us. We're really under no crazy pressure to bring in any amount of players or revenue. It's just organically building comparatively to, jumping in it and trying to do the biggest deals from day one. We don't have that. So I think on a day-to-day aspect, my life is a lot busier. I think because the flash of the name, a lot of people, it attracts more players, more agencies to want to work with us, stuff like that. But we're the same people with the same mentality of doing the right things at the right times, and nothing changed in that aspect, except for now we have the resource. I can pick up a call and ask someone with with more experience in other things and get their feedback. And if I said, oh, we need this and this, I know that we can get it, right? I try not to ask unless we need, but I know it's there. For example, when we brought in our first female athlete, and she became the youngest ever player for the Houston Dash and NWSL. What I knew that my strengths were not the best into the brand partnership side. I knew I was a football guy. A guy who knew the development of football and what to do and what clubs to be, and that there was those relationship. But the relationship would say Nike, Under Armour, and Beats by Dre. I didn't have those. Like, just but we did for Young Money, so I could utilize our partnership with that, and he's getting all these brand deals and stuff through that, which I'm very happy about, because that shows that we have other aspects of the things that with people with other strengths, and we together we can give the best service to our players, which I know I'm it's not for me. I always can be able to tell you my strengths and weaknesses. I'm not afraid to say, and that was just not our strengths. And I was okay to say that compared to some of these other agencies. Right. So now to have that, it gives us a huge advantage. And that's a very big example, I think, of where the day-to-day has changed, where I can really, if a player says, hey, listen, I want a sponsorship by this and that, tomorrow I can touch that brand, because we have someone in the agency on the football side or whatever side that they would know those guys. So that's the biggest difference, I think.
What's the biggest lesson or takeaway from another industry? So if we take the NFL or the NBA or the entertainment side in terms of music and so on, what's been the biggest takeaway that you can take from them and say oh, this is something football agents are doing that I'm talking now American football. This is something American football agents are doing that I can now put into the soccer world and try something new.
I don't want to
Have you seen any of that?
I don't want to give away all my secrets.
I know. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just giving you a hard time. But no, I wouldn't say there's a lot. I think there's things that can go both ways that we do in soccer that they don't do there.
Right.
But honestly, I think that in because of the United States is one country and all the talent in the NFL and the NBA is kind of in here, so it's very, very competitive for them. They're watching guys since they're 12, 13. Same that how the Premier League boys are watched in England, right? So you have to be on your game with every aspect in your recruitment, within the NFL and college football and everything. And with NIL now and all the sponsorship thing is honestly nuts.
Yeah, it's outrageous
going around there. So I'm getting a little taste of it, because we have some big boys in NIL space that I'm like, wow, these guys it's crazy. But the biggest thing is the marketing. I think in soccer in general, we're lazy. I say that real thing. We're pretty lazy when it comes to marketing players and all that aspects of it, because I think it rubs some people wrong with oh, this guy, for example, Jude Bellingham, right? There's a player that is really well marketed, right? And people get annoyed by it because they're like, why is this guy always in
yeah.
So it becomes almost hated in an aspect, and we look down on seeing good players often sometimes because we call them PR merchants. but I think it's really, really important, because and it's something in Chyn sports that I even realized that I think in the space of marketing for soccer, you only see the done deals, right? You're like, oh, hey, with the jersey, we're signing, and you just don't hear about that player until that next deal. And I think we make sure that, like, because we see it in even other sports, some of these agencies are pushing these guys all the time. They're showing highlights, they're showing different things, and that's why we ran through a weekend recap with our agencies every weekend, every week, beginning of the week we drop that, right, and it just shows, keeps people updated on what the players are doing, and the players feel good because they feel appreciated, and it's like almost like a reward system for them too. But I think that's like should be standard. Like I mean, like there's a lot of things when it comes to player care and services that we slack in soccer because everyone usually only cares about that move, that next move. Oh, he needs to get to that next place and that next place and that done that. And there's just so much in between that needs work. In football and NBA, they're really, really big on their off-season training stuff. And in some agencies have their own facilities, like purely just for their players to go for off-season stuff. And I think I don't know any agency in soccer that's doing that, right? You don't really have that. And these are things that I'm looking at and taking from them. That I think it's not really industry standard. And I think if we do that, I think it'll give a better service to our guys. It's not, and I can honestly say I'm a very competitive person because of playing elite sports. You always are, but I really don't look at anyone else and say, "Oh man, I got to beat Rock Nation because they're entertainment as well, or Clutch, or Watch Them In." I kind of look at it like we're all just in our own path. I think everyone in this industry can eat. We can all do well and in our own little niches and really be successful, because there's a lot to do. There's a lot of good players, right? So I don't look at it like I need to beat out anyone else or we need to get this crazy market share. I think if we do things the right way, good things will happen anyways. But I think that's what's missing. I think we're lazy. I think at the end of the day, we just want to do the deal and like, all right, good luck, score some goals, and we get you the next place. And that you can't do that in NFL and NBA because these guys will leave in a second because they've had these guys in their ear since they're like AAU basketball players.
Yeah.
And they know what's out there.
You mentioned that it helps a lot on your end to have kind of that former player stamp, that you've gone through what a career means, all the different stages, the different challenges. So for you now, like, how are you being able to guide players, or how are you being able to like use what you experienced in your career now in informing your players? So you mentioned, for example, your first contract, you didn't have an agent. So I'm sure there was a lot of different learning stages throughout your career. I'd love to hear kind of your relationships with agents throughout your career and how you've now been able to develop that to help your players.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's been, like I said, invaluable. Without it, I wouldn't be where I am in this industry because I didn't have I didn't have a law degree or, you know what I mean, anything else that's saying I'm like this contract expert, right? Or anything. I'm not coming from the marketing aspect that I'm saying, oh, well, I'm going to market you better than everyone else. So I think I came from the player approach because of the fact that that's what I knew. And the biggest things that I think we do better than most people at is getting the best out of our players because of knowing what they're going through. I think I'm like a psychologist more than anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's what, like I told you, like a lot of our guys were younger. And when you're a young player, especially, you have a lot of doubts, but you have all these great dreams and you want to get to these levels. And I think, like I said, because of the done deal mentality of agency work, we forget the between, which is the most important. And being a player helped me know what they're going through. I was in those locker rooms the same, and I knew, and I looked back at my career and said, all right, if I had this guidance then, and if I knew this then, what decision would I would make? And like I said, I wouldn't change anything now, but I can actually see it in them and use my stories now to get through their heads. Because trust me, like they don't even listen to their parents. You know how it is. Like the young guys are like, they're focused. And because I have younger brothers and younger siblings still in it too, I knew exactly how to reach those guys. And I think that is the biggest thing for me, where I think is our biggest advantage. And that's why we get the best out of our players compared to anyone with our specific demographic. That's why we had the MLS Next Pro MVP and one of the young players of the year in USL League One and young player of the year USL champions. Like every level in the US, we had a young player that was competing at the highest level. And now it's to take it to the next level. Can we get can we bring in the designated player level players and get the best out of them like that? Guys that already felt like they accomplished something and may look, start being on the decline. Can we revitalize them and keep them at a high level? And like my biggest thing, and that's why it was called Chyn Sports, which with a Y and not my last name with an I, is because I was obsessed with the why. With the why do you wake up to play football? Why do you do what
That's
you
good.
do, right? And that was literally why I started that other company to begin with. So taking that into Young Money with a Y now, right? It felt really organic that I could keep on that mission. And I think because I've lived it, the players listen to me a lot more, because I can say, listen, like, if you're not playing, you can't just blame your coach and the team and favoritism. Like, some point you have to have some accountability, right? Because I remember when I didn't have accountability, my phone dropped. So like I could say that, and when I use my examples too, they're like, hey, like, this guy's not just saying it just to say stuff to me, what he's reading in, something else. He lived it, like, right? And I want all my players to have better careers than I did. So that's where I think the playing aspect was a really big advantage.
If you look at like Instagram or LinkedIn, you see the life of an agent can be super glamorous. You're traveling all over the world, signing players to some of the biggest clubs. But I know behind the scenes, there's some day-to-day things sometimes where you're like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I signed up for. So I want to hear some of those moments of like, just we were like, this is so unexpected. This is not under the role of like being an agent, but I'm doing it anyways.
If I could tell you some of these things that it's really, really, I'm an island boy at heart, right? I say that because we're a lot more chill and we handle things a lot differently. If I was a very high stress, high strung out person, I would have been in a coma already. It is just so much going on, and so many things could go wrong at every single point. Things you will never predict could happen. And I think it's tough for a lot of people, like you said, is the glamour is because a lot of people only showing you the done deals. Like I said, you're only seeing the jerseys, but there's a lot of work that goes into even a USL one guy getting a contract, right? What we not see. Some things are easy, like no brainers, where the guy you have, the team reaches out, he wants to go there, they want him, the budget's good enough, and then woo, that's like great, but that's like 2% of the time, right? I think the hardest part is having a vision of knowing where your player needs to be and what could do and where he can be or where his next steps would be. And then the people at that next steps might not feel the same. And you can't get them there. I think that's the most frustrating thing too, is because as an agent too, and I would say as ones that really study the markets and watch games and seeing what everyone is doing every decision and studied the history of what works for different teams and not, which is what I try to do. We have a broader scope of the markets than most teams because they're really focused on what they need to do to succeed, and we're focused on what everyone needs to do to succeed so we can help them succeed so we can get our players in there, right? So it's really frustrating, and the part where you don't see is that half the time people don't even respond to you. Like, you as a player, and I don't care how big of an agent you are. Just some people are just horrible with their response times and everything. So there's a lot of miscommunication in that aspect where you send a player where someone not even asked for a player, and then they get it and they never respond, and then you have to move on, and then you move on, and then the club comes back to you. Hey, where's this guy still available? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why wouldn't you say something? So there's a lot of aspects like that. I mean, I had a crazy situation last year where I got I felt like I was gonna get killed in Colombia. I was in Colombia for a deal, and like, so I felt like my life was just threatened. I got like, shepherded out, made to the airport. I left like 5 a.m. in a trench coat. That's a crazy story. I probably could be in Netflix with that one. And then I honestly, like, I try to stay put as much as possible and only travel when I need to. Because of that, because the aspect of that is that time is precious, really, in this game. I think, and everyone deserves it. A lot of these guys deserves it, but like you can't fund yourself to get everywhere at once, right? So we have to be really good on our phones because of it, and being really present because of it. So I think that's the hardest part, is that people just see you there in those stadiums or scouting these games, and that's just a really, really, really top of the iceberg part of everything, right? I at the end of the day, I try to be very available, and to be very available, you have to. I'm distracted from my family all the time. You know what I mean? Especially during a transfer season, like you don't get to do certain things that you can, because I'm always trying to leave a schedule open. Because if PSV calls me tomorrow for 1 hour play and I have to fly over there to do something, I have to do it. And so I'm doing my guy a disservice, and and those kind of things is this parts you don't probably see.
Before we wrap things up here, you're with Young Money now. What is the most ambitious goal, or the boldest goal that you have now for the near future? If you can kind of give it away, or hint at it at least.
Honestly, like I said, we're in an organic growth process. Like we don't have anything crazy, but I mean, it would be lovely to put a guy in a top Champions League club, or get a guy, one of our guys, young guys, to get into those kind of environments within the next couple of years, rather than just recruiting a guy that was already there. You know what I mean? But obviously we want to get the best of the best as well, right? We feel like we have the resources, like we spoke about. We feel like we have the brand enough to take care of them, and the care, and the people who knows football enough to know the right moves for the next moves and all that kind of stuff. So our goal now is to kind of get the better and better talents into higher and higher levels. And that's never really changed. But now I think we can accelerate that process a little bit more. And maybe in the future, maybe club ownership, or, you never know. Like, I think that the football ecosystem is really diverse, and there's a lot going on. And I know everyone's kind of thinking the same thing. Oh, we need to own a club and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, I feel like I have a very good grasp of what it takes on the club side to be successful at this point. And when it's the right time and the right opportunities, maybe we can go into that aspect. But for now, we're really focused on the players and their well-being, and seeing them grow.
We'll wrap things up here with some quick fire questions. If you could play for one team in history, all across the board, who would it be?
2004 Arsenal Invincibles. I'm an Arsenal guy. Thierry Henry, I try to model my game after him when I was really young. Yeah, I would say that would be the team. Obviously, we get no respect now. We get hated on a lot.
Where would you play in that team? Would you play as the 9, or would you move Henry over? How would you do that?
I would just happen to be on the bench of that team.
Just watch it. Yeah.
Just being the vibes of that team is great. I think obviously they're such great players, and Bergkamp and Vieira, and I would just fit in. I'll come off the bench. I'll do my super sub role.
Yeah, super sub. I like that.
And then I watch the king do his work.
What is one book, movie, or TV show that has inspired you recently? Maybe a podcast?
I mean, I'm constantly, it's crazy because, like I said, like you're always working, but like part of my work is to see what's going on in the world. I'm a YouTube wormhole fanatic. I watch, Diary of CEOs, different podcasts like that to gain ideas. I like, YouTube channels like the Athletic Interest, what speaks about the business of sports and stuff like that. And these things kind of like inspire me, and I see how some of the big dogs are doing things, and kind of learning from there. So I think it's non-traditional. So I'm not showing my age here. I'm looking like a young buck.
Yeah.
I read a lot, especially, I mean, growing up, I couldn't help it. I had to. And now, traditional, I use a lot of the newer and media and try to see streaming and people doing things real live and seeing how they're obviously engaging with their audience and in their fan base, and seeing how I can bring that into soccer and help my players maybe build their brands into these aspects, that it's not just only football, and they can have something to sustain them after it. So yeah, I think everything is pretty non-traditional these days with me with that.
There's a quote, and it's like the day you stop learning is the day you die, and I think that's sort of where you're at there. That you're just constantly learning. I love it.
Yeah,
If you could,
yeah, for sure.
if you could sit down with one person for a meal, past or present, who would it be and why?
So this is a tough one for me, a very tough one, because there's so many people for different reasons that I would sit down. And I would honestly say the late and great Pele, because breaking barriers is probably the hardest thing to do in anything, right? And I think obviously he's worshipped as one of the greatest ever and the greatest ever at certain periods, and just influenced so many. I remember my dad telling me stories of when Pele come to Brazil and he touched his toe. And when the car was driving by, and like that was like a huge deal, you know what I mean? Just to be able to speak to someone that had that kind of aura, and just learning like the challenges of it, and what he went through and how he developed himself, and that would have been, I think that would be the biggest reason that I would choose him.
Dennis, I really appreciate your time. I thank you for coming on. If you have any last words, or if you want to shout anything out from your end, and then we'll wrap things up.
I could say Young Moolah, baby, but but no, I really honestly appreciate the time. I appreciate you getting me on here and speaking a little bit about the football and aspect, especially this during the time the transfer window is.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
But and my phone's probably going crazy, right? But it's been a breath of fresh air, and to be able to speak about these things, and I enjoy watching some of your other guests and learning and seeing. Like I said, I'm non-traditional, right? When it comes to that, and shout out to everyone in the business that is growing the game. I think that it's really exciting times, especially in the US, right? Where we get looked down on by other places around the world. But as an immigrant that came in with high hopes and seeing how everything has grown, and it's still growing, it's been really exciting to be a part of, and hopefully, and seeing other people do great things, right? I'm the biggest hype man when it comes to not even guys in the agency, just my colleagues and people doing great things. It's really inspiring.
Dennis, I appreciate your time. Best of luck with the upcoming window, and we'll keep in touch, okay?
For sure, and thank you.